My name is Ray, and this is my 1997 Maxima GLE. It's got 483,000 miles on it. I've done most of the work on it myself, so I must be doing something right. Recently had to do the oil seal, and I thought maybe I could share how I did it with some of you out there.
The crankshaft front oil seal is located on the passenger side of the engine, behind the crankshaft harmonic balancer pulley. I've already put the car on jack stands and removed the wheel so I could get access to the work area. The tools I used for this project are in the description box down below. Here's an important tip. It was impossible for me to do this job without an impact wrench. My recommendation is get an impact wrench if you're going to do this job. I'll have some information in the description box as to what I used. The first step is to loosen the idler bolt so that you can loosen tension on the serpentine belt. This takes a 14mm wrench. After you loosen the idler pulley, loosen the belt tensioner by turning counterclockwise using a 14mm socket wrench. Once belt tension is loose, remove the serpentine belt. There are two bolts to loosen on the power steering pump. The belt tensioner bolt and the bolt that locks the tensioner. That locking bolt is in the upper left area of the pump as you face the engine. It needs to be loosened first before you can turn the belt tensioner bolt. Both of these bolts are 12mm. Here's an important and very helpful note. To loosen the belt tensioner, you need to turn the bolt clockwise, opposite to what you might think the normal direction would be. Turn the adjustment screw bolt clockwise to loosen the belt. Use a 12mm wrench to turn the belt tensioner. I started with a combination wrench, then realized I could have used a 12mm socket on an extension with a universal joint. Next time I'd try using the socket first. Once you've loosened the tension on the belt, it comes off pretty easy. Next, spray oil into the crankshaft bolt area and give it some time to soak in. Using a 10mm wrench, remove the crankshaft sensor so you won't risk damaging it. The final step is to remove the crankshaft bolt on the harmonic balancer. Because the engine will turn easily when you put torque on the crank bolt, you need to find a way to put some tension on it. I considered locking the flywheel via the starter motor port or through the observation port under the engine, but decided it just wasn't worth the risk or the effort. Instead, I took an old belt from another car, wrapped it around so that as I put torque on the bolt to loosen the bolt, it would tighten on the belt and create tension on the pulley. The more it turned, the tighter the belt would get. While not perfect, it did help. The next step requires the use of an impact wrench and a 19mm impact socket. It took all of the 1,000 foot-pounds that wrench had to loosen the bolt, as you'll see.
Got it!
Finally, remove the bolt. This is what it looks like. Now that the bolt's removed, a little jiggling of the pulley, it should slip right off. Use an oil seal removal tool to remove the seal. It should come off pretty easily. Clean the surface area after the oil seal is removed. I was able to pick up a new oil seal for under $10. You can see one side has a groove around the ring. The groove side of the oil seal faces inside the engine, and the flat side of the oil seal faces out towards you. Take some fresh motor oil and lubricate all the surfaces on the new seal. Then very carefully press it into where the old seal was removed from. As you press in the seal, feel around the edge to make sure it goes in evenly. You'll be able to feel it if it's even or not. I didn't have anything like a large socket large enough to use as a tap on the oil seal, so I found a clean piece of 2x4 and very slowly and gently tapped it into place. I continuously felt around the edges to be certain it's seated properly. When it was finally seated, I took a Q-tip and wiped the area to make sure that the surface was clean of any debris. When reinstalling the pulley, be sure to align the key on the crankshaft with the keyway on the pulley and press the pulley onto the crankshaft. Make sure they line up. I tapped it lightly into place with a rubber mallet just to make sure it was seating properly. Next, coat all the friction surfaces with motor oil and hand tighten the bolt into place for now. Now it was time to put my improvised friction belt back on, but this time in the reverse direction so that as I tightened the bolt, the belt would tighten on the pulley. I'm really not sure I needed to use the belt when using the impact wrench because I think the impact wrench may have had enough torque to overpower any need for additional friction, but I still think it was helpful to do. This is where it starts to get interesting. According to the shop manual, it says, tighten the bolt between 29 to 36 foot-pounds. Put a paint mark on the crankshaft pulley, and again tighten by turning 60 to 66 degrees, or about the angle from one hexagon bolt head corner to another. So what I did was I tightened the bolt to about 30 foot-pounds with a torque wrench. I made a mark on the pulley opposite a 60-degree bump on the washer. I then put a paint mark on the bump to the left at the 60-degree bump mark, so that when I tightened the bolt, the washer would line up with the mark on the pulley. That would register as a 60-degree rotation. So I tightened the bolt the 60 degrees needed using an impact wrench. I turned it very slowly and was able to monitor the marks easily to that 60-degree rotation point. Now that the crank bolt is tight, I could remove the friction belt. Next, reinstall the power steering belt. After putting the belt on the power steering pulley, tighten up the adjustment bolt, but in a counterclockwise direction using a 12mm socket. Again, remember, to tighten the belt on the power steering pump, turn it counterclockwise until there is the proper amount of tension on the belt. Then tighten the 12mm locking bolt so everything is secure. To reinstall the main serpentine belt, loosen the idler pulley bolt so it slides freely, and use a 14mm socket to turn the adjustment screw for the idler pulley from above. When the belt is at the proper tension, tighten the idler pulley bolt to between 19 and 24 foot-pounds as the shop manual recommends. The work area was too small for me to use my torque wrench in, so I had to estimate the torque. Next, reinstall the crankshaft sensor using a 10mm socket and reconnect the electrical connector. Now it's time to fire it up and see how we did.
I hope this video was helpful and informative for you. If it was, please like, share, and subscribe. Love to hear your comments, so leave me a comment. And I will continue to post videos as I work on this car in the future. Catch you next time.